Hi, boys and girls. The story that we're going to read this week is a different kind of story. I hope you find it very interesting. The story is a biography. Can you say that with me, boys and girls? Biography. Very good. A biography is nonfiction text that tells the story of a person's life. Now you will read about Alexander Graham Bell, the man who invented the telephone. What do you want to find out? Set a purpose for reading. So, a biography is a story of a person's life, like it said, but it's a story that's written by someone else. So, Alexander Graham Bell did not write about his life. A different person did. Well, they asked you, what do you want to find out? So think about what it means to invent the telephone. What do you think you would want to find out about that when you read? Alexander Graham Bell, a great inventor. Inventor might be a new word for some of you. Think for a second what it means to invent something. Did you come up with create something new? Yeah, that is correct. The story was written by Lynn Blanton and illustrated by Guy Francis. The question of the week is, how can a great idea change the way we live? So think about how things like the telephone change the way we live. And in the picture, as you can see, here's Alexander Graham Bell, and it looks like he's speaking into this part of his invention, and you can see the long cord that you may not know, but telephones used to have cords like that. Most of the phones that we use today do not, because a lot of them are cell phones, but regular phones used to have long cords. Okay, let's start on this page. We've got a really interesting illustration here. You can see that it has a long purple line and it has some short purple lines coming out next to it. And it says early life. Well, this is a timeline of the early life of Alexander Graham Bell. And it gives us different dates: 1847, 1861, 1863, and again 1863. And then with each of those dates, you have an important fact about Alexander Graham Bell's life. Let's look to see what happened in 1847. He was born in Scotland. And then this is a picture of the place in Scotland where he was born. Scotland is a country that's outside of the United States where we live. And then in 1861, he invents wheat dehusker. Dehusker might be a different word too. On the outside of wheat, there are little husks or really hard pieces that cover the grains of wheat. A dehusker would be a machine that would take those off for people so that they could get to the good part of the wheat. Then in 1863, he teaches music at school for boys. Again in 1863, he teaches speech for deaf children. And here's a picture of him teaching speech. And a child who is deaf is a child whose ears don't work very well. And so they can't hear, so they have to communicate, sometimes even with their hands, using sign language. Okay, let's start reading now. Alexander Graham Bell was born in Scotland in 1847. His family called him Alec for short. His mom was deaf. His dad helped deaf boys and girls learn how to speak. So just like Alexander Bell was teaching deaf children, he actually learned how to do that because his father, as you can see in the picture, taught deaf boys and girls to learn how to speak. And I bet he did that because Alexander Graham Bell's mother was deaf. Alec liked playing music. His mom taught him how to play the piano at an early age. She could not hear, but that did not stop her. She played quite well. Soon, Alex started teaching others how to play. Alex's dad helped deaf boys and girls learn to speak. Alec liked watching his dad teach. He decided he wanted to teach speech to deaf people too, just like his dad. So in the picture, you can see his dad is teaching the deaf boys and girls how to speak. And then here's young Alec, which is short for Alexander, helping his dad teach. As a teen, Alec liked studying the science of sound. But what he liked best was inventing new things. He daydreamed about things he could make. Alec invented a useful tool. It took husks off wheat stalks with a brush. He also built a gadget that made it seem as if his dog could talk. Think about that, boys and girls, and think about the picture that we saw at the beginning. What does this picture here, where it made it seem like his dog could talk, remind you of what we saw on the title page? Did it kind of remind you a little bit of the telephone that he had invented? I wonder if this is where he got the idea. Okay, now we have a new timeline. So this timeline, the name of it is New Home. So just like the other one, there's a long purple line and then short lines to show you the different dates. So in 1870, goes to Canada. Now Canada is the country that's just north of the United States. So he had to travel across an ocean to get there. That's a pretty long ways. In 1871, he goes to Boston. Now, Boston is a city in Massachusetts, which is in the northeast part of our country. It's kind of close to Canada, so he didn't have to go too far to get there. In 1873, he starts spending more time inventing. And then we have a picture here, and he's gotten a little older. You can see he has a beard here, and he's inventing more things. When he was 23, Alec Bell got awfully sick. He left his boyhood home. He and his family went to Canada. They hoped he would get well in this new place, and he did. Then Bell went to Boston in the United States. He taught speech for deaf students like his dad did. And you can see that's the same chart that his dad was using in the picture before. Bell liked teaching, but he liked inventing things better. He started spending less time teaching and more time inventing. So what do you see in the illustration or in the pictures on this page here that let you know that he's inventing things? Did you notice the drawings that he has on his paper and the words that he's written? So he's drawn some illustrations of some different ideas of some new inventions. Remember, every good idea starts with a great plan. Okay, we have another timeline, and this one is called Great Idea. In 1874, he meets Thomas Watson. In 1876, he invents the telephone. Look at there. Kind of like that illustration that we saw at the beginning. In 1922, he dies in Canada. Okay, let's read. One day, while shopping for supplies, Bell met Thomas Watson. Watson, a skillful toolmaker, had helped many inventors before he met Bell. Bell told Watson about his latest plan for a telephone. Bell and Watson worked long days and nights on Bell's plan. Bell started thinking his plan might succeed. He got a patent for the first telephone. A patent says an inventor owns and can make and sell the thing he or she invents. The first telephone call took place on March 10th, 1876. Now, here are his plans right here. And then this paper right here, the picture in the back, this is the patent. And the patent says, just like it told us in the book, that the invention is owned by Alexander Graham Bell and that he can make it and he can sell the thing. And then nobody else can make it because the patent means that the idea belongs to him. So it's very important. That day, Bell dropped a jar by mistake. It spilled and he called for help. "Mr. Watson, come here. I want you," he called. At least that's how the story goes. Watson came running. He had heard Bell's voice through the wires. The phone worked. Now, did you hear the part where it said, "At least that's how the story goes"? Sometimes when people are writing a biography, they may not have the exact information because they're writing about people in the past. So sometimes they have to do the best they can with the information that they have. So that's why they said, "At least that's how the story goes." Bell traveled many places with his telephone. People watched as he showed them how it worked. In a short time, many cities and towns had phones. Bell kept on inventing things until his death in 1922. He will always keep his place as one of the greatest inventors of all time. So this is what the telephone looked like in 1922. It had an earpiece. That would be the part that you would hold up to your ear. You can see the long cord that it had that I talked about earlier. And it also had a mouthpiece. The mouthpiece would be the part that you would speak into. It wouldn't go on your mouth. You would just talk really close to this little circle right here. Now here's what a present day phone looks like. So these would be phones of the past, and then these would be phones of the present. And even some of our phones today, like right now, could look a little different than that. But you can see that it has the screen, and then this one has buttons, where a lot of our cell phones only have a screen now. Okay, now it's time for our questions at the end. We're going to think critically. So you will need a piece of paper for this, boys and girls. So pause the video, grab a piece of paper and a pencil. And remember, when you read the story on Monday, you are going to be answering the questions. On Tuesday, you do not have to answer the questions. Number 1, why is Alexander Graham Bell's invention important to people everywhere. Now think back to the invention of the telephone. Why do you think that invention would be important to people everywhere? So pause the video and you can answer the question on your piece of paper. When you are done, start the video again. Number 2, why do you think the author wanted to tell about Bell and his life? So what was the author's purpose for writing the story? Pause the video, write what you think would be the reason why the author wanted to tell Alexander Graham Bell's story about his life. Write it down for number 2, and then start the video again when you're ready for number 3. Number 3, what happened after Bell and Thomas Watson met? Now you're going to have to think back to what Thomas Watson, who he was. What happened after they met? On your paper, write your answer for number 3, pause the video, and then when you're ready, start it again to be ready for number 4. Number 4, how do the timelines help you understand Bell's life? Now remember, the timelines had the long purple line and it had the short purple lines coming out from it with the dates and the information that it told us about those dates. How did that help us understand Alexander Graham Bell's life? So write your answer on number 4 and then pause the video. Okay, number 5, look back and write. Look back at pages 177 to 181. What was Alec Bell like when he was a boy? Write about it. So think about what he was like when he was a boy, some of the things that he would do, and write 1 or 2 sentences about that. Okay, boys and girls, remember on Monday, you're answering the questions, but on Tuesday, you're just going to go back and read the story again. Thank you.